as a operator, as a startup, we not only think about this 28,000 crores, we also think about that in 2027-28, this 30,000 crores is going to be 1 lakh crores. Everybody is shooting for pie of that 1 lakh crores. It's not only about the present, it's also about the future. What has evolved is like probably in 2013, we were seeing very early days of social media in India.
Now you look sort of 10 years out,
Yeah.
How has that audience changed? And the original thesis with which you started Inshorts, does that still hold today in your view?
Our audience is mostly those who are seeking credibility, who are seeking trust.
If you could go back and maybe give yourself 2 pieces of advice which would have made this journey a little bit easier, 1% easier perhaps,
Yeah.
what would that 2 pieces of advice be?
First is
Welcome to another episode of Lunch Break with Lightspeed. I'm Romit. Today I'm extremely excited to host Deepit. Deepit is the co-founder and CEO of Inshorts. Inshorts, of course, all of us have heard about it, but it has 2 flagship apps. There's Inshorts, the news app, and then there is Public, the local information app. What amazed me actually, Deepit, I found out you started Inshorts in the final year of your undergrad.
yes.
So you've never had a job, always been an entrepreneur and a founder. Back in 2013,
Yeah.
Of course, Inshorts, we have all used it during sort of our phase of owning a smartphone. Today, it has 12 million active users. And then in 2019, I think more interestingly, the company saw an opportunity in the market and they launched Public app, which is a local short video platform. It has 70 million active users across 600 plus districts in India. So sort of incredible scale. When I thought about this episode, I wanted to chat about changing landscape of media and content consumption. And there were few people who I thought would be better placed than Deepit. Let's just go talk a little bit about Inshorts, right? You started this back in 2013 and the idea was to make news accessible to readers. I remember we obviously interacted through the years and you told me that the audience for Inshorts was young, in their mid-20s, often sort of owning premium smartphones versus what the national average smartphone price was. So always a slightly English first, young, affluent, millennial kind of an audience.
Absolutely.
Now you look sort of 10 years out,
Yeah.
How has that audience changed? And the original thesis with which you started Inshorts, does that still hold today in your view?
Yeah, I think in a way it still holds true, more true than ever, and in a way it's evolving. So what stays true even today, even more so, is the lowering attention span and people wanting very short form, crispy bites. But I think what has evolved is like probably in 2013, we were seeing very early days of social media in India and the point of view oriented content consumption. I think that has evolved in a very big way.
It's almost exploded. Yeah.
It's exploded. But I think the point of view market is also something that is really important, and people want to express, people want to consume, people want to react, people want to influence using what they say.
But I'm just curious, in your view, sort of when you then look at your users, right? What have you found are the ways to build authenticity or trust with that user base, which is increasingly driven towards narratives rather than stating facts as is?
Yeah. So I think while the power of narratives and especially more extreme provocative narratives is the theme of the town, I would say that there is a large cohort of users who want to know the facts, but want to know, are not interested in the extremities, because they know for a fact that extremities are very morphed realities. So people are generally wanting to have points of view from trusted, credible sources. So even though the source has changed from a brand to a person, the way you decide that person has not changed really, right? The layers of credibility, the brand and everything is still true. So I think how much due diligence has the person done while putting forth a narrative or a point of view is still very, very important, right?
Yeah.
So there is a market for that.
Yeah.
So I think our audience is mostly those who are seeking credibility, who are seeking trust and are open to all sides of the narrative. But at the same time, they trust the platform to do its job, to make sure that whatever is on the platform, there is a basic trust and credibility layer or thresholding that the platform is doing.
Right? How do you remain relevant to your users?
Yeah, so like over last 6-7 months, we've opened up a invite-only creator program. We have opened up a publisher program wherein people can come and post on the platform. We have built the credibility and the quality check mechanisms around it. And obviously, if you do anything new, there is a time where you are still evolving.
Of course.
But we've figured out that formula really well now. And we've given users the choice, right? That who do they find credible, who do they not? Are you interested in this source? And we've built the kind of morphed that platform, the platform into those sort of territories. So we maintain a very active checklist of things that we check in the source, that whether they are following those guidelines. If we see that someone has kind of done something that gives them the red card thrice, we politely ask them to move on.
Not be on the platform.
Yeah.
Got it. But of course, Inshorts as an organization is not a stranger to video as a content platform, right? I mean, you have public in your portfolio and 70 million users active across 600 districts.
Yeah.
And this is local content, right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. I'm just curious, in that scale-up journey, right?
Yeah, I think the relatability factor, that people in tier 2, tier 3 towns of India, right? They are exhausted by the metro and the national focus of things, right? They, in their daily lives, want to know what is changing in their lives. But there needs to be more talk about how will their lives change in their surroundings, in their areas, right? Whether it's economic opportunities, whether it's law and order, whether it's other issues, right? Whether it's general governance, whether it's communities, right? So relatability, if we take the theme of relatability, for most of India, what is happening in their city and their town is more important most of the time than what's happening pan-India.
Got it. And so essentially the fact that this was the only platform that allowed them to find out what's happening in their local neighborhood just gave it that sense of relatability that was missing anywhere else.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And the fact that the creators were people right from their communities, right? Who could speak not only their language but also their dialect was also very, very key. India has like some 30-ish languages, but India has 1,500 dialects. Like within a state, and it being a video platform, the affinity that it created with the dialects playing a huge role because it's video and audio is another factor for that relatability.
And then what was in it for the creators themselves, right? Because clearly, if they just wanted pure distribution, I guess somebody might think, okay, you know what, let me publish this on YouTube or like go there. For one, your audience would be more spread out. But here, by design, they were being targeted, or rather their audience was in the local community. So what do you think were the creator incentives here? Because that's also played a critical role in scaling this company.
Absolutely. So I think if people who are watching this or anybody who's grown up in a tier 2 city in India, right, they would know that being a key opinion leader in a tier 2 city is a position of prestige and position of influence, and this is a new platform which gives people the opportunity to kind of have a new way to become a key opinion leader in their communities. There are the older folks, but the newer folks, if they want to rise up the ladder in terms of being community leaders or key opinion leaders in their locations, this was the platform to build it.
So almost as a form of social validation.
Social validation and influence as well, right? Like a person who has probably 1 lakh followers in a city of 5 lakh people on public, the person roams around in the city and everybody knows him, right? That this is the person who's taking the voice or voicing things that are important for the city on the platforms.
But then maybe I guess the final question for me on the company would be that today you have a mix of text-based news app and then there's of course video-focused public, but in a world which is essentially moving towards more and more interactive media and video, right? How do you sort of evolve your strategy to serve your users?
Yeah, I think video is the way to go in a big way because a lot of consumption has moved to video. Video also has multiple formats, the vertical, reels type of format, then there is horizontal video, which is primarily YouTube. So all those formats exist. I think our DNA has been to continuously innovate on form factors and formats, and we do that really well. So I think there'll be an audience for text, there'll be audience for video, and it'll evolve. Text itself will evolve into something more interactive, I think, and video itself will evolve into more like how do you aggregate video instead of a single stream of reels. People will become more choice oriented. There'll be vertical categories where people would want to exert choice on
The kind of content
what kind of content they want to consume.
Actually, in a way they perhaps already do because in some sense the engagement on Reels is high because the algorithm recognizes the kind of content that you like and then it just kind of loops that back to you. So yeah, I think users kind of demonstrate that anyway unwittingly and yeah, you're right. Like I think the idea is not to go horizontal but to be vertical and focused on things that you might enjoy. Maybe shifting gears a little bit, I guess when you started this company like a decade ago almost, I have some numbers here. The digital ad spend in India was about 2,000 crores. Today, if that figure is right, and you tell me it's about 30,000 crores almost, it's a 15x growth, right? Can you just break down this market a little bit in terms of nuances? How much do large platforms have? How much do upcoming startups have? Region-wise split, tier-wise split, so metro versus the smaller towns.
Yeah, I think obviously when we talk about 2,000 crores versus 30,000 crores, we are almost talking about net addition of 28,000 crores. But as a operator, as a startup, we not only think about this 28,000 crores, we also think about that in 2027-28, this 30,000 crores is going to be 1 lakh crores, right? So of this 1 lakh crores, everybody is shooting for a pie of that 1 lakh crores, right? It's not only about the present, it's also about the future. So if you see the spend patterns of companies, this 30,000 become 1 lakh because most of the ad spend of big companies, even FMCG companies, are going to go digital, right? And when they go digital, because of so much access to data and choices that the marketers will have in how to reach and influence their audience, what we feel is that the domination of a few platforms will gradually reduce, and although they'll play enabling roles, they'll have platforms. For example, Google has this product called DV360, right? Where Google is giving it access to sophisticated marketers to choose where do they want to spend their ads and where do they not. And so the big tech companies will play a role in the enabling layers, but the end placement of those ads may not necessarily be with the big tech companies as much as it is right now. Probably today it will be around 70% or 80%. Probably I think it should go down a little bit to 60-ish%.
And the thesis is because there'll be other platforms that will just engage the users.
Yes. Ultimately, ads is what? Like catching the attention of the audience, right? That's the end objective. That are you able to cut through the clutter? You are in a competitive category. So reaching new audiences in new ways is very, very important because people, if they see certain ads, right? Certain form of ads, like people start developing blind spots. So storytelling of the brand is a very important part, but where do you have that storytelling done? Which platform and how is also very important. For example, Inshorts has this format called magazines, right? Which we actively sell to brands and innovation. So for example, bespoke solutioning to brands has been a very important part of building our revenue stream. That how can we innovate not only on the consumer formats in which the consumers can kind of consume content, but how do we innovate much faster and build bespoke solutions for brands. So we currently would have templates for about 100 types of ad innovations that people can do on Instagram.
So then maybe coming back to the question, right? 30,000 crores today, 1 lakh crores, 4-5 years out, whatever that number is, this spend, you say, maybe the dominance of major platform goes down, so 40% of the pie is available, 40,000 crores, still larger than the whole overall market that we have today in 4 to 5 years' time. how would that split by regions and geographies? And I'm curious because I think you're a unique company that operates across both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
You know, there is Inshorts, which is perhaps serving the more English first audience, and then there's Public, the local content app that's in more regional languages. So how do you sort of see the opportunity panning out for both of them?
Absolutely. Probably 10 years ago, the Indian market was restricted to 10 cities. Today, the Indian market is at 100 cities, right? Probably 10 years out, the Indian market will be 200 cities. So wherever, as the economic engine of India kind of starts spreading across cities and the city count increases, India has about 3,000 cities. So that's the level of depth India offers. So so the brand allocation on growth will always be disproportionately in places where they are seeing growth opportunities, where the market is not yet taken, by one brand over the other. So that is where I think the big delta of digital spend will come, because till before this, to reach these places, the only format was TV, right? And TV is very broad, one stroke fits all kind of solution, right? On TV, you can't do multiple targeting and all of that. But given that CTV is penetrating, given that digital access is penetrating, you will see a lot of spends and sophisticated patterns of spend emerge in the tier 2, tier 3 towns.
So what do you expect that share of the pie to be?
I would say that it will be easily like 40-50% of the entire, non-metro spends should be 40-50%
That's a massive opportunity.
1 lakh crores,
And so then today when you approach brands with we have Inshorts and Public both, right? Is it a different set of brands who are interested? Or is it the same brand who now have an opportunity to run a campaign across, audience?
We are in the brand building business, right, for them, and we are enablers for them. So the big thing that we've kind of seen as a trend is that there are brands who are reach focused, who would want a more wider campaign, and these are mostly the top FMCG, F&B, BFSI kind of brands. And government also is a very, very active spender. So all of those categories spend in a reach focused way. So there the spends come to both Inshorts and Public, right? Then there will be some brands who are still very early in their journey in India or in their brand journey. So they are still in the metro focused zone. So they will do a Inshorts focused campaign. And then there are brands who are much more stronger in tier 2, tier 3 towns. They don't have a very strong presence in the tier 1 or metro audiences, right? Like regional food products, right? For example, as a category, jewelry as a category, right? So all of them will probably choose Public as their go-to platform. And everything else kind of is a byproduct of
and
that.
then at the company level, how do you think about, I guess, distribution versus profitability, obviously in context of Public more, because that does have 70 million users, but you would have had to make trade-offs early that, okay, perhaps monetization journey starts when we hit a certain
Scale.
user base or a scale, right? So how have you made those decisions?
So I think we've been lucky that way, that we've had great investors, board members who've kind of guided us in making those right decisions. And so I think making sure that the cost structures and the fixed cost structures are in tune with what the potential of the business is very, very critical, right? You can spend on growth. So then I think it is okay to spend on growth, because that also gives you a disproportionate advantage over any other competitor. Because the kind of sector we are in Public, I think it's a winner takes all. And we are the winner in that segment. We have 90% market share in the hyperlocal use case. And I think we are just getting started on that product, right? The depth of engagement that is possible, it's immense, right? And now we are completely disproportionately growing through organic word of mouth. But getting your penetration to those levels that you have the organic word of mouth going is very, very critical. As opposed to, let's say, thinking about monetization. Monetization is about hitting the right kind of distribution so that you can start having those monetization conversations. But when we think of investing in growth, monetization is sort of takes a backseat a little bit, and how do we get to the levels where we start seeing organic growth is more critical. Because I think that is the real game, getting the organic growth in favor of your brand or your product is the real game to be won.
I mean, allows you to grow with lower CAC and just healthier overall economics as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The other ways in which we are seeing a lot of content businesses generally monetizes through micropayments as well as subscriptions. I'm sure you might have discussed that internally. Could we perhaps switch on one of them or both of them?
Yeah.
What is your mental model on what kind of content businesses are suited for these kind of monetization techniques? One is of course ad, the other is subscription, and third is micropayments.
Yeah, I feel that the UPI and UPI autopay, right, the two waves of payment infrastructure innovation India has seen is crazy, right? And that has enabled what we are seeing today in terms of content platforms doing microtransactions. Most of the players are friends in the ecosystem, right? And everybody has found their mojo, if I could use this term, in micropayments or subscriptions. And people paying for content is a very important long-term trend that we have to support in the ecosystem. What is the scale and how much scale are we able to unlock in terms of people shelving out this money is going to be very dependent on the value creation. If majorly people start getting fatigued by the fact that, okay, everything is just behind a paywall and most of my things that I paid for ended up not delivering the value that I thought it would deliver, then it'll just affect the ecosystem. So I think we all should be very focused. We should be very excited by this, but we should also be very focused that we should be driving the value.
People get a bang for the buck.
Yes, but I think subscriptions in general is very suited for categories where you have high brand trust. You've cracked brand trust, versus microtransactions is very suited for categories where there is value to be unlocked at the thing that you're offering, because it creates that value for me immediately, right? Versus if you are, say, subscribing to a platform that has repeatedly delivered value, right? Subscription, I think, is a microtransaction is a precursor to subscription. The other school of thought that I have seen emerging in my conversations with other founders in the ecosystem is the fact that microtransaction makes a product look a bit cheap sometimes. So if your positioning is slightly premium, right, then you have to play it slightly smartly, that whether the microtransaction, the quantum is kind of diminishing the value of the product. So I think that is something that needs to be kept in mind.
One thing that sort of come up, as we're meeting more companies in this space, Deepit, is just the rise of AI, which has been incredible.
Absolutely.
Of course, that's kind of like large platforms like Meta have incorporated that on the Facebook app, on Instagram as well. One of our portfolio companies, Pocket FM, has used AI extensively to be able to produce shows faster and cheaper. Ultimately, I mean, the way where it is trending is hyper-personalized content. Right? What is it for me, like uniquely suited to their preference, like to an individual or a user's preferences? What is your take on AI sort of percolating through content platforms? And then specifically when it comes to Public and Inshorts, how do you think it might shape those apps?
Yeah, I think I would say we are seeing the kind of Microsoft Excel moment of content creation, right? The initial phase of the value that spreadsheets created, right? It's crazy, right? Like
it held up the whole financial order.
So I think we are seeing a similar moment in content creation, and tooling and verticalized tooling based on AI specific to different content segments is going to be a crazy value unlocker, right? People say that this is going to take away jobs and things like that. I think the other way around. I think it's going to improve productivity like we have never seen before, right? And obviously there will be consolidation based on this, because some players will do this adoption really well and some players won't. But I think across content categories, there will be no content category where AI won't have an impact in terms of content creation, speed, like diversity, and AI is very good at laying out options, exhaustively laying out all options, and that it does it really fast. But I think the perception of AI that most people have today is very general. I think the value to make sure that your AI actually starts impacting your P&L and your ops processes and your efficiency levers or your growth levers, I think what is really important is to focus on very focused task layers, right? For example, if we were trying to adopt AI in our kind of ecosystem, so for example, in Shorts, we already have summarization as a thing that we are building, right? And we've built it over the years, even before LLMs were there. And then there is, say, curation as a layer. How do you curate for a particular audience? And then how do you generate images, right? Like, I think breaking down the entire workflow of content creation and making sure that you build something that is solid, even in one part, it's okay, right? But being very focused that then that part is completely, how to do quality control on top of that. Quality control is very, very important in content, especially in categories like ours.
Yeah.
So making sure that all those layers are built in a very quality checked, robust ways is very important for the long term benefit of the company or the product that you are in.
Play this maybe 10 years out. AI is able to create content quickly, cheaply, in high fidelity, you can do video generation, pretty much everything. Yeah. In that world, what is the value of a human content creator?
So I think of human content creators as having multiple skill sets, right? I think how AI augments a human content creator's mind is that it is able to expand on the imagination of the human content creator and give them low fidelity mock-ups really fast, right?
Yeah.
I think the quality of work for human content creators will become more sophisticated.
Very interesting. Deepit, I'm just sort of hearing you speak, and it's just like so much of your learnings, worldview has been shaped by an incredible, a 10-year journey, right? All of these experiences that you've lived through. Maybe I just want to end on this note. You started this company as a kid, right? You're in college, you're not even graduated at that point. It's been 10 years out since then. You would have made a ton of mistakes, of course, and learned a bunch. If you could go back and maybe, give yourself advice, 2 pieces of advice back 10 years, which would have made this journey a little bit easier, 1% easier perhaps.
Yeah.
What would that 2 pieces of advice be?
First is, I think the advice would be that just ingraining into my mind that this journey is not going to be easy.
Yeah. Did you think it will be easy when you were 20, 30? Or maybe you didn't know, I guess.
Yeah, we didn't know.
Yeah.
So I think just prepping for
what's ahead?
The roller coaster. I think people talk about it being a roller coaster, but people don't understand what it is. So probably if there was a way for me to get through to a younger me in my language, that what this roller coaster is really going to be, I think that would be very, very important. And the second thing is, I would say that a learning that came to us a little later is that sometimes what is really important is that you self-conviction is really important. Self-belief is really, really very important, right? And there is so much of noise around advice, and people will watch this show as well and podcast as well, and they'll take something from here, they'll say something from somewhere else. But ultimately, as founders and as investors, I think the value of conviction on what you believe is right. So I think what consumers end up showing always, especially in the VC and startup world, is that consumers will always surprise you.
Yes.
Right? So just having that conviction takes you there. So I think that is an advice that I would give everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end this. Consumers always surprise you, so hold on to your convictions and follow them and see where it takes you. Deepit, it's been so good to have you. Thank you for sharing all your incredible learnings about this. I'm sure the listeners have enjoyed it, and we count on you to continue growing Inshorts in public and hopefully see newer versions and more products out of Inshorts.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, and thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. Thank you.